Welcome to the John C. Scott Political Forum.
Great show today. We're going to talk with Michael Bryan, lawyer, founder of Blog for Arizona, the progressive voice of Southern Arizona. And Larry Bodine will be with us, the president of the Democrats of Greater Tucson. A lot to talk about. This legislative session has ended. It's been one of the most disastrous, in my opinion, legislative sessions in our history, attacking voter rights, attacking abortion, attacking public schools. Here is Michael Bryan. Michael, welcome to the show. Thanks very much. You look at this legislative session, you have to say, oh, my God.
Indeed, John. It's a pleasure to be with you. The Republican Party basically turned out a document that was negotiated behind closed doors that shortchanges our citizens, shortchanges our kids, and does nothing to actually address the needs of real Arizonans. Arizona voters are pretty clear that they want people in office to be talking about education, about health care, about inflation, about water, about climate. And, their budget really does nothing to address any of that.
Yeah, it seems to me, you take a look at, of course, the move by the Republican Party over the last decade, perhaps even longer, to privatize all public schools in Arizona. That's where they're moving, and that's what they're doing. As Doug Ducey, the outgoing governor of the state, has said, this is a win for all K-12 students, not a win at all. You have a situation where you're trying to compare private schools to public schools. Private schools do not have to take every child. They can be very selective about the numbers of children that they take. You have a situation where public schools, with the erosion of funding for these public schools going on almost on a weekly and daily basis in the state of Arizona, that they're becoming literally extinct. We are destroying public education, and we are eroding the very foundation of our democracy when we do so.
Yeah, but it's been the GOP project here in Arizona and across the country for many years now. The worst part about it is, obviously there's not going to be a mass exodus from excellent public schools into private schools. First of all, the $7,000 or so that they're handing out to the wealthiest people in Arizona, I'll remind you, in order to subsidize sending their kids to private schools, generally doesn't actually cover the entire tuition. Really, it's just a tax cut for the wealthiest people in Arizona who can afford to send their children to private education at $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a year, and they get a $7,000 bonus straight out of the general fund for education to do that. So really, you can look at this as more of a tax cut for the wealthiest in Arizona than any kind of educational policy. Plus, of course, the Supreme Court has been opening the doors to parochial schools and religious schools receiving tax funding. And it's all aimed at trying to undermine our public education system, because that's what builds citizens. That's what builds citizenship, is an informed and well-educated citizenry. And, of course, the GOP doesn't want that.
Can you explain to me what these abortion laws in the state of Arizona are all about, considering the Supreme Court's ruling on Roe versus Wade? I mean, where are we in the state? Does anybody really know? I don't. You're a lawyer. Tell me.
It's going to be for the courts to sort out, the Arizona state courts to sort out ultimately. Right now, Attorney General Brnovich is trying to enforce a territorial era law that is basically bans all abortion in Arizona. That was from before we were even a state. But the state legislators controlled by the AZ GOP, are right on board with this project. They're focused like a laser on taking away the rights of Arizona and American women to control their own destiny, to be full participatory citizens in this country. They've created a situation where essentially the state owns the reproductive systems of Arizona women. That's what they're focused on. That's what they're crazed about. And it's the extreme. It's not the mainstream. The mainstream position on abortion is that it should be safe, rare, and legal. The vast majority of Arizonans and Americans agree that abortion should be an option, and that these private medical decisions should be made by women, their families, and their caregivers, not by state legislators who have arrogated to themselves the power to control women's uteruses. So I don't know where they're headed with this, except, they're in a death spiral. They're in an extremist, radical death spiral that they're pandering to the most extreme elements of their party and completely ignoring the opinions of the mainstream on issue after issue. Abortion is merely indicative of where they're going. But the issue of abortion is very much on every ballot in the state of Arizona and every ballot in America, because you know that the GOP, if they retain power, are going to continue to chip away at and attack women's rights. That's just the fact. They've promised it. They're all running on it. They're all extremely pro-life. They've all said they want to stop women from making these decisions. And so when you vote for a Republican anywhere on the ticket, you're voting against abortion. It's simple as that. And I think independents and Democrats and even a lot of Republicans will realize, look, if I continue voting for Republicans, I'm voting against equal citizenship for women. And so, yeah, people should vote accordingly.
By the way, U.S. Department of Justice is asking a federal judge to block Arizonans from enforcing a new law about who can vote for president. That lawsuit filed last week. So that will eventually wind up in the courts. And, of course, the attack on the right of every Arizonan to vote and making it much more difficult for that Arizonan to vote has all been a part of this legislative session. I've never seen such an attack on voter rights as we've seen in the last legislative session, and it gets worse every session.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it will be very difficult for us to do much more in the Arizona House besides achieve parity. We may be able to take the Arizona Senate, and we can certainly take statewide offices, including the governorship, which can veto any bad legislation coming out of the state legislature. So if you really want to stop the Arizona legislature from attacking our rights to vote, to reproduce, these things can be done. You have to have a Democratic governor to stop it all. There is a lawsuit that's pending that Brnovich is piloting now. And the reason why they've done this is they know this is constitutional. It's against direct precedent by the Supreme Court. It's against federal statute, but they've done it in order to test it against this new radicalized 6-3 Supreme Court. So, they're going to throw everything they can up against the wall to see what will stick with this new radicalized Supreme Court. And this is just one among many of the ways that they're testing.
Speaking of the wall, it seems to me that the only message that Republican candidates for governor have is, well, we're going to finish the wall. They're not going to finish the wall. They don't have the money to finish the wall. Nobody wants to finish the wall. The wall was a stupid idea in the beginning. It's a stupid idea now, and that's what people are running for. And we're talking about the damn wall. Please stop it.
You mentioned the budget that passed recently. There's hundreds of millions of dollars in that budget to build Trump's wall. They would rather spend hundreds of millions of dollars on this ridiculous vanity project of Donald Trump's instead of spending it on the education of our kids. They could have spent those hundreds of millions of dollars, backfilling the cuts to public education we've seen over the past several years. Instead, they're spending hundreds of millions on this idiotic wall. When, most Americans will tell you that immigration is what makes America America. We want a more rational, more humane system. And building a wall and, building an alligator moat or whatever it was that Trump wanted to do along the border is not going to fix the immigration system.
Michael, the whole idea that the Republicans now, I guess, are fighting it out for this Republican primary for governor. You've got Governor Ducey endorsing the businesswoman Karen Taylor Robson, and apparently the Donald Trump endorsed frontrunner Kari Lake, who everybody's starting to realize is just a total nutcase, still is the frontrunner. So how do you think this primary is going to turn out for the GOP to face, obviously, a very powerful and a very likely Democratic candidate for governor?
Yeah, it's hard to say at this point. Kari and Karen are neck and neck, but the debate that they had recently, the AZ GOP governor debate, that made national news for just how incredibly bonkers it was. It was like an SNL skit. I mean, Kari herself said, "What is this? An SNL skit?" And she's right. I mean, it was almost a parody of itself. We had these clueless people on the stage, and really the dividing line is between Kari and the other mini-me's who want to be just like Kari and Karen Taylor Robson. And the dividing line between them is really election denial. Kari and her other compatriots there think the 2020 election was stolen from Donald Trump. And Karen Taylor Robson won't say that because she knows it's complete nonsense. And that's really the civil war going on within the GOP right now. And a party at civil war with itself over something as ridiculous as an election 2 years ago, which every court that's looked at it, every expert that's looked at it has said there's nothing there. And a lot of the more reasonable voices in the Republican Party say there's no there there. But they continue to insist to this to their crazy, disconnected from reality base. And that's the big dividing line in both the Senate race and in the gubernatorial race, and pretty much every race throughout Arizona that there's a contested primary in the GOP, is that you have somebody who's saying, well, look, Trump got less votes. Simple as that. There was no massive systemic corruption. There was no crazy conspiracy theories. Trump lost. Move on. And people who are saying, in order to suck up to Donald Trump and get his endorsement, the election was stolen. I mean, look at Blake Masters. He comes out straight and says that Donald Trump won in 2020. He's the rightful president. He says that January 6th was a false flag operation by the FBI. You know, the man is extremely extreme, and so is Kerry. But, you know, there are even people in the Republican Party who think Kerry is herself a secret Democrat who's carrying out a psyop on the GOP. I swear to God, one of the candidates on the stage in the debate told Kerry that he thought her whole campaign was a psyop. They've gone insane.
They have indeed. Very quickly, there's going to be some decisions that voters are going to make. Proposal for Arizonans for free and fair election contains literally a laundry list of changes in state election laws. It would ensure that voters are counted no matter what precinct they cast their vote in. The proposal would rein state and state's permanent early voting list and automatically provide mail-in ballots for anyone who opts in. And there's two other measures as well that are pretty darn significant. One's going to do away with dark money. The other one has to do with bankruptcy and medical debt.
Yeah, the reason why we have to bypass this legislature is because it's totally out of touch with the mainstream of Arizona. President Biden said recently that the GOP is prioritizing the extreme over the mainstream, and I got to say that's definitely true here in Arizona. So yeah, voters are going to get to vote on some of these key issues and roll back some of these attacks on our voting rights that the state legislature has done this year and prevent them from making future attacks. So, yeah, I definitely encourage people to look for that on the ballot and to vote yes in the general election to the clean elections.
Do you find, Michael, the Democratic Party energized on many issues that obviously come to mind, which is about gun control, abortion, all of these lightning rod issues that you would think if you can't be inspired to take those issues to heart and vote on them, then there's something terribly wrong with you, really.
Yeah. I always hear people say, vote as if your life depends on it. But, really with gun rights and abortion rights, people's lives do depend on it. We're seeing people dying in mass shootings almost every day. And, when the GOP gets its way, and they pretty much have, abortions have stopped here in Arizona, women are going to go underground. They're going to get the services that they need, regardless of what the law might be. And women's lives will be at risk. So, yes, people's lives are literally at stake here. So we need to vote like our lives depend on it. That's really where the GOP has put us with their extremism.
Michael Bryan, thanks so much for being with us. Really appreciate your observations, and your blog for Arizona is truly one of the great blogs of America. If you want to know the mind, heart, and soul of the Democratic Party, just read it every single day at Blog for Arizona. Thanks for being with us. Great to talk with you. Thanks for giving up part of your weekend to us, too, as well. Thank you.
Thanks so much, John. It's a pleasure.
From the Perfection Network Studios, this is the John C. Scott Political Forum. Here's the president of the Democrats of Greater Tucson. Here's Larry Bodine. Larry, welcome to the show. Glad you could join us. Thank you so much.
Well, you're welcome, John. It's always terrific to be here.
Thank you.
I've got some news from the Democrats of Greater Tucson. I invite everybody to come to our meeting on Monday at noon. It's going to be on Zoom, and we're going to have a man called Akani Oyegbola. He is the former mayor of South Tucson. He's been in government there for 6 years, and he's going to be speaking to Democrats of Greater Tucson about his run for the State House in Legislative District 21. That's the gerrymandered district that goes from Broadway in Tucson all the way to the border. So just go to thedgt.org or Google Democrats of Greater Tucson, and you can sign up. We welcome all good Democrats, and it's a chance to learn about people who are running for office. And then, John, of course, you know, we're all a fun group of people. We enjoy a good time, and I'm inviting all Democrats to come to the DGT's Drinking Democratically Happy Hour. It's going to be on July 20 from 4 to 6. Again, sign up at thedgt.org or just Google Democrats of Greater Tucson, and we're going to get together and enjoy each other's camaraderie. It's a great opportunity to talk with fellow Democrats, and it'll be at Brother John's Beer, Bourbon, and Barbecue on Stone. So that'll be a good time. We have a video library of 200 videos, so you can see every candidate running for office across the state, in Congress, strategists, consultants, Corporation Commission, and the two most important races in Arizona. One is for Arizona governor. We've got to elect Katie Hobbs. She is going to veto every bad bill that we get from the extremist Republican legislature. And the other position is Chris Mays. She said she's running for attorney general, and she said publicly she will not prosecute any woman for having an abortion. So there's a lot going on at the Democrats of Greater Tucson.
Let me ask you this, Larry. There's no question that a lot of people are still confused, and I'm one of them, about the new legislative districts after, obviously, the census. Every 10 years we redraw the boundaries of the legislature and drawing the lines in favor of the Republican Party, and no one can deny that. The simple truth of the matter is a lot of people don't know what district they're in or who's running. Now it's changed. All of it's changed. The boundaries have changed. The people have changed. Everything's changed, and you have a solution to the mystery.
Yes, I do. And that, again, is going to thedgt.org, Democrats of Greater Tucson, and you'll see a red button on our homepage that says, what is my district? What is my new district? And you just type in your address, and it will tell you. And we are going to, we have a list of all of the Democratic candidates running statewide on thedgt.org, or just Google Democrats of Greater Tucson, or call me up, send me an email. I will send you all the information that you need to vote in the primary, which, by the way, John, is going on right now.
That's right. The early balloting has begun. And, surprisingly, I think it's going to be a pretty good turnout. A lot of people care. There's a lot of issues that affect Democrats emotionally.
I hear you, John. I've been telling Democrats that it's time to stand up and fight for your rights because these extremist Republicans are dangerous. We saw that on January 6th, 2 years ago. The radical Republicans have already stolen many of our rights. They've infringed on the right to vote. They've demolished reproductive rights. They've eliminated the right to a healthy environment. And they've destroyed the right to be safe from mass shootings and weapons of war. I lived near Highland, Illinois, where a gunman got on the roof and just blasted away at people celebrating the 4th of July. And the toxic Republican agenda is terrorizing our county election workers. They want to send mobs to the polling places. They're demonizing teachers for teaching the true history of the country, and they're whining that everybody but them is a socialist. And they just yammer on and on and on about, migrants at our southern border. So, on July 4th, I sent an email to 6,000 Democrats across the state, and I was telling them, show your American flag, put up your Democratic candidate signs, and show everybody that you are not lulled into complacency or resignation and that you stand up for democracy. That's what I'm telling Democrats right now, John.
Well, it seems to me, as you follow the legislature, and of course there's issues that are going to be on the ballot for voters to be able to decide how much liberty they want when it comes to being able to vote. There has been attempted restriction of voters and their voting rights in Arizona for the last decade or longer. It's really important to pay attention to what this legislature is doing to restrict people's ability to actually cast a ballot in this country. They realize if you shrink the voter rolls, Republicans have a much better chance of winning.
That's exactly right, John. They know that if all the voters turn out, the Republicans will lose. So the Republicans are working to make it hard to vote. They don't want people to vote. However, Democrats are fighting back. Here in Pima County, you can go to a vote center now to cast your vote if you don't send it in by mail. And the beauty of this, John, is you don't have to go to some particular precinct. There are going to be vote centers all across the county, and it doesn't matter which one you go to. You can drop off your ballot and vote. And that's what I encourage everybody to do right now.
Thank you so much, Larry Bodine, for being with us. The preceding has been a presentation of the Democrats of Greater Tucson. With us has been the president of the Democrats of Greater Tucson, Larry Bodine.